Navy SEALs will let you kill yourself. Okay? That is a true axiom. They will let you do some shit where you can kill yourself.
We are going to talk about the hardest and most dangerous parts of both of our training. We're doing it at night, and we're going to fast rope on top of this building. And I swear, the top of this building must have been maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. Like small with big railing, like a 3-foot railing around the outside. And I was a fries master, so I would be the guy that would send everybody out, and I would go out last. And I start sending my dudes out, and we're good. And then my warrant officer, the other Nate on my team, he is probably about 150, 160 pounds soaking wet, right? And in fast roping, the lighter you are, the more that rope can do crazy shit if someone's not holding it down on the ground. I send him out the plane, and as you go out the plane, you're sitting on a helicopter, and you got your we were doing out of Blackhawks. You're sitting there, and so you kind of turn away from the plane and 180. That way, your rucksack doesn't catch on the helo. And as he turns and goes down, I watch him. He just disappears immediately under the aircraft because of the rotor wash. So he disappears. The rope goes flying that way. And I'm like, oh, God, he's gone. And as I'm sliding down, and I'm able to look down below, and he's got his feet on the railing of this 4-story building, right? And he's doing this, like holding onto the rope as his feet are on that railing, trying not to fall off the side of this 4-story building while the rotor wash is blowing him off the building, back onto the building, off the building, back onto the building. Even time on a team, whatever that looks like. And then who would win in an arm wrestling match between the two of us?
Oh, you would 100%.
I think I could beat Jake in a arm wrestling match, but in a real wrestling match, I would get the shit destroyed out of me. So
my elbow is non-functional. So if I had to wrestle you with my right hand, obviously, because I couldn't ever use my left hand arm wrestling, 100%. Like you would, like I wouldn't even be able to, like any torque on my elbow. I feel like my elbow is going to explode and disappear.
We got Peaches in the chat. He said Nate is looking deflated. That's interesting, Peaches. If you were to actually deflate my body to about 50% of what it is, then we would be about your size, Peaches. So you should just chill out.
Oh God, Peaches is throwing daggers out here. I love it. Shout out to TastetheGainz. This is what I crush, so I'm on fire in these podcasts. My boy Nate dropping TastetheGainz.
Yeah, these episodes are going to be brought to you by TastetheGainz. Y'all have seen me rep their creatine gummies on the channel in the past, and now they have pre-workout gummies. And guys, I love pre-workout personally. I'm a Red Bull junkie. Unfortunately, I'm still trying to give these up.
Ooh.
But guys, this pre-workout, you should copy some. 2 gummies, and it's as good as any pre-workout I've ever had. You don't have to chug a bunch of disgusting water. Put it in your gut.
I don't know if there's a limit, Nate. You 2, I do 4 1 hour before I talk, and then I'll be like, "Let's go." So
yeah, I mean, you could take what your heart can handle, guys. But it's 2 recommended gummies per
2
serving.
recommended, but I do a little extra strength. All right, let's get into it, Nate. We're talking today about tough parts of training, not necessarily the beginning parts of NDOC or Navy SEAL training, but we're talking about what makes the community really hard.
Right.
We're going to work on Nate not interrupting. And here's my suggestion. We're
good.
Nate, I think Riverside, because I did another video, I think we just have to take a pause after we talk a little bit, because for some reason, Riverside is jumping it forward a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. No, we're good. I've been working on it. I know, guys, it's hard because the way you have a conversation with someone, right? Like if me and Jake were offline, that's the normal way of conversation. It's banter back and forth. But for you guys watching this, I'm not a podcast expert, so we're working on it. All right.
That's why we're doing so well, Nate. We ain't podcast dudes. We just some dudes trying to help people and do good things. If I was some professional at this shit, it wouldn't be genuine, right? That's not who I am. It's a different level of game. And one of the things I wanted to really try to get across is just how there are no safety officers out there. There's no guardrails. There's nothing to prevent really bad things happening to you when you start training with real bullets and grenades. And I got a couple stories that are one is super sketchy. And then two of them are like really benign, like just kind of like, oh yeah. And then it was like, oh no. And then it got to be like, oh no, oh no. And then it was like, okay, we got to do something, you know? And so when I was in SQT, which is like for us, it was the qualification course after you got done with BUDS. You used to graduate BUDS, you go to your SEAL team, you're on probation for a year. So we were in SQT, and SQT is built for, like, let's say a guy coming out of BUDS, or you have a guy coming back into the community. So in my platoon, there was a chief who had been down at the 18 Delta course teaching for 6 years. And there was a free fall instructor that was coming back into the community after spending 3 years in Yuma as a free fall instructor. So there was 2 classes, and they alternate training. So like if we're doing diving, the other class is doing land warfare. So we were diving, doing our diving, and the other class did land warfare. Well, they started a forest fire. Okay. So they're out there, and my buddy's on the other training cycle, and he's like, yeah, man, we've been fucking doing IADs, which is immediate action drills with guns in the middle of a forest fire. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, it's bad, but like, you know, like we're fighting through this smoke. I'm like, okay. So fast forward, probably a month, and we go up to Fort AP Hill, and we're going to do land warfare. So we start in this big open field, and there's smoke everywhere. And I'm like, what the hell is this shit, right? And so we got out there. It was the middle of the summer, Virginia, and it was like a wheat field, but for whatever reason, it was like 115 degrees out. And so we had just got done with BUDS, right? We're in phenomenal shape. But Chief and the E6, they weren't in phenomenal shape. And so we're out there, and somebody had a thermometer, and they're like, yo, it's 115 degrees out here. So we do one bounding movement, right? Like they had us bounding, and I don't know how you guys do it in the Green Berets, but for us, we have colored balloons on the targets. So it'll be yellow or red balloons. And so your job is to shoot all of the red balloons first, and then you transition to yellow balloons, because the yellow balloons are less dangerous than the red balloons, okay? And so you can't move. Like the red balloons are like, there's normally, let's say 5 of them for 8 people. And once you shoot the red balloons, then you can start moving. So you can bounce. So we're out there. It's hot. It's so hot that my uniform is dry. So I know you operate over in the Middle East. You can sweat all you want, and all you get is these little crease lines of salt, but your uniform is dry. So we did one. Okay, we came back. You jock up your magazines, load your magazines, and then the next group, they go do theirs, and you kind of alternate back and forth. And so we did one, and my chief and my E6 were like dragging a little bit. So I was like, okay. So then we go and do another one, and the other team comes back, and they're really dragging. And so then I'm like, all right. And we go out and do that third one, man, and it's probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We get back, and my E6 is like, can't even like jam up magazines. And I'm like, are you okay? He's like, I'm not okay, Jake. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go over to training, and like now it's super professional. Like I go over to training, hey man, listen, it's really hot out here. I got 2 dudes, like we can't do another one. We want to go to the lake and lay in the lake for like an hour, cool down, and then we'll come back. And he was like, absolutely. He said, we seen the same thing you are. We out here on the range with real guns. We don't want no problems, right? But you know, as the officer, that's my job. Like my job is to make sure we don't kill nobody out here in training. And but it was like, we'll let you go all the way up until you say something, right? They probably training, you know, the 2 E5s that were out this running training would probably let somebody pass out, you know? And so like, that was one of my first eye-opening experiences, other than the first jump where I almost drowned. But like personally, like being in, like, you know, you're like, oh shit, like, okay. All right.
Yeah, for training for us, especially in Fort Bragg, for those of you who know what the Southeast is like in the middle of August in full uniform doing stuff like Jake's talking about, heat casualty is probably one of the number one ways that gets guys in our training pipeline. I'm going to talk a little bit about I'm going to transition into, I think you're right. Like we've talked, everybody knows like the dangerous parts of training. I'm going to talk about in like the Q course, I'm going to talk about the dangerous parts of training as you move into an ODA. And what spurred that on is you mentioned, you almost drowned on your first jump. So that I'm going to talk about when we're going to talk about dangerous shit. And we're talking about helo casting or doing jumps into the water, and especially the ocean, which we did, which I imagine you guys did, and we did out in Okinawa all the time. So a big part of this is also what the tide's like, what the swells are like, and you never know; it can change. So we we were working on our military freefall team. We were doing a lot of water jumps because we were trying to be the first ODA to proof of concept a military freefall jump onto an island in the South China Sea, which we ended up doing. But to prepare for that, we had to be able to like land in the fucked up ocean because the islands are so small. And there was one time I think we had 6 foot swells. They were at 3 foot swells. We were about to load the plane. And in Okinawa, like I'm looking out over the ocean. We're on the airfield, which is right next to the beach. And it's black, like it's just black clouds, right? And you're like watching, and you know what rain looks like over the ocean, right? And they're like, it's like I forget what we were allowed to do. Maybe like 6 foot swells might have been the absolute max. Which, for those of you guys know, Jake knows 6 foot swells while you are in the water with a parachute strapped to you, not good.
No,
But
no bueno. No bueno.
yeah, we decided to do it anyway. And yeah, you're out there. You cut sling load right before you hit the water. So you're coming in on military free fall shoot. You basically get your harness all undone. All you have is your leg straps on. So right when you hit the water, you pull your leg straps and you fall out of your parachute. But then you have obviously the Zodiac boats that are waiting to pick guys up. And when there's 6 foot swells, it's doing this, and it is very, very hard to figure out where somebody is. And we'll watch guys who are new. If they don't get all the way out of their harness when that parachute hits, if the swells are high, the parachute can get drug underwater. And when the parachute gets drug underwater, you go with the parachute. And you play this game of like trying not to drown as the ocean bashes you while you're hooked to this parachute. You're trying to get out of it. Pretty crazy, dangerous, actually, when we talk about, military free fall is not like that dangerous comparatively to a lot of things we do. I know that surprises people, but when you parachute into the water in the ocean, that is that's always got some incredible sketchiness to it, because also, you're just there by yourself. You're trying to get your flotation devices to activate. You're hoping like your parachute doesn't pull you all the way under to where you drown. So do you have any I imagine you do experience with jumping into the ocean, Jake?
So I told this story a bunch, but I think I'm going to tell it right now because so I show up at the SEAL team. I'm going to do it really quick. I know you guys have heard it. I'm going to talk about it real quick. Show up at the SEAL team. I walk into my summer whites. Master Chief says, "How many jumps do you have?" I said 5. I graduated from Benning on Friday, okay? He said, go to supply, get your shit. We're jumping. Cool. I go to supply. They hand me fins, a knife, a flare, a UDT vest, and a flight suit. Yeah. And I'm like, what are these fins for? It's a water jump. I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. Now, I hadn't learned the axiom that Navy SEALs will let you kill yourself. Okay. That is a true axiom. They will let you do some shit where you can kill yourself. So I'm coming back from supply at SEAL Team 8. You walk by the armory, and then there's the training room. And I've been here for 45 minutes at this point, okay? This is my first day checking in the SEAL teams. I walk by the door. I see training. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get some help in here. I go in there, and there's some dude. I say, hey, sir, hey, man, can you help me? I got a water jump today. I've never jumped in the water. I graduated from SEAL training on Friday, or in airborne at Benning on Friday, and they said don't land in the water. Next thing I hear is, hey, who the fuck is that? I'm like, oh, shit. I look up, it says CW4 above his door, right? So I'm like, hey, Warrant, it's new JG checking on board. And so I haven't even seen him yet. He's just yelling at me, right? He's like, did you go to Bud's? I'm like, yes, warrant officer. He's like, did you graduate? I'm like, yes. He's like, get the fuck out of here. You're a frogman. Figure it out. I'm like, oh, shit. So I leave. I go over. I catch the end of the parachute brief. Right. Like, basically like, hey, we're 4th story. Have a good jump. Water jumps are awesome. Right. Get on the bus. So I get on the bus, and we got to drive over to Oceana, probably a 30-minute bus ride. I don't know anybody on the bus. Like normally you're gonna know people on the bus from buds or I don't know anybody. So I'm just a new guy. I'm just fucking on the bus. And I'm like, hey man, does anybody can help me with this water jump stuff? Two dudes turn around and say, hey man, it's fucking easy, new guy. You'll be fine, bro. Just don't worry about it. Okay, all right, cool. So I get off this bus, and now it's real. There's a C2 Greyhound, the little tiny cargo planes, and I grab some. At this point, like I'm in full blown, like, okay, no, we're not. Like I grab a dude. I say, listen, man. Not only do I not know what's going on, I don't even know what to do with any of this gear. Yeah. He said, no one told you? I'm like, I'm not letting you go until you help me. I need help, okay? Or I'm getting back on that bus and I'm going to go back to this. He said, no, don't do that. He said, listen, here's the deal, okay? So put your fins on. He had a roll of duct tape, right? If he didn't have it, he taped them to my shins. He said, listen, you can walk like this. He said, listen, you're going to get there, undo your chest strap, okay? Light loosely, don't take it all the way off. He said, you're going to hit the water. It's going to be the easiest landing ever. You're going to pop your leg strap or pop your chest strap when you get closer to the water and then pop your leg straps. Make sure you put your fins on. Okay, that was the briefing. He said, listen, it's not going to be hard. The boat's going to come pick you up immediately. No big deal. Okay, so I was like, all right. Okay, right? I got my confidence back, right? So, and I got a video of this. When I find it, I will post it, but I cannot find it right now. So we get on the helicopter. We get on the plane, and this is my 6th jump. Okay, 6. And I'm looking out the window like, those waves look awful close. Well, this kind of looks different than Benning. Like, that doesn't look like 1,200 feet. I'm like, So I'm like, okay. And they're like, stand up. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you like this. I don't care who tells you that static line was just awesome. They're lying to you. Okay. Like, so I'm like, oh God. They're like, hook up. And you're like, oh, you put your little wire through, you bend it just like I did like on Thursday before I graduated. They're like, move on. You're like, you're shuffling, right? But you're on a little ass thing. They told me, make sure you duck your head so you don't hit your head on the door, right? So I go out the plane and I'm like, okay, it opened. I get my fin on and I'm looking at the water like, oh God, why is it so close? I get one fin on before I hit the water. Okay? I hit the water and I'm instantly being drugged face down into the water and my head is being pushed down. I'm like, Somehow I managed to turn over and now I'm looking at the water like this and it's going by really fast. And I'm like, I'm trying to a chest strap. I had my chest strap off already. I went to feel it was already off. I was like, okay, cape well. So I got my cape well. Off and the parachute deflated. I got to the surface. I had a little UDT life vest. I didn't inflate it. So the last thing the dude had told me when I got on the plane, he said, whatever you do not lose your fucking parachute. Yeah. And I was like, what? He's like, they will give you tanks and you will be out here diving for weeks until you find your parachute. Yeah. So that was the last thought in my head, man. Just like you said, solid 3-foot, 4-foot waves, parachute sunk. It's pulling me under the water. I'm fighting to breathe. I got one fin on. They didn't pick me up for an hour and a half.
Yep, and that's why I laughed when you said like we'll pick you up right away. No,
I was the new guy, and they were like, so they got there. It was probably almost the most smoked I had been in the SEAL teams. That was my first 7 hours there. But even later, I was putting out I didn't want to lose my parachute on the first day as a new dude. And when they got to me, I was ready to beat everybody up in the boat, man. They were like, "Where's your parachute?" I'm like, and they got me on the boat, and then I was able to catch my breath. You recover fast after training, and so I was like, "You motherfuckers!" And they were like, "Calm down, man. You're the new guy." I'm like, "You And then the light turned on, and I was like, "Yep, you fuck around in this environment, you're gonna get killed, man." So, and that was I tell all my new guys, it's one of my best new guy speeches. Like, look, man, there's gonna be times in the teams when you first get there that you need to raise your hand and step out of
Yeah,
whatever the fuck it is, because
100%.
if you push your luck, you're gonna end up dead.
Yeah, and oh, that's such a good point. And we tell the young guys all that. Like, if you don't fucking know, ask a question. Even if you think it's a stupid question, you might get made fun of, but it's going to save your life. Don't just assume you know what you're doing because the job's dangerous, and you don't know what you're doing, right? Especially like you mentioned with static line, military free fall into the water is so much better. One, right? You control your parachute, you can flare, but also you have 10 minutes to adjust yourself. So, you get in the air, you get it comfortable, you get your chest strap undone, you're ready to go. And then as you slowly come in, you can undo. Static line, you've got, I don't know, a minute or less to get out of the plane, make sure your parachute actually open, and then start putting on your fins, undoing your chest. And like the odds you get all that ready by the time you hit the water is, unless you're really, really good at it, extremely low.
Nate, I forgot a very large part of this problem. There was cloud cover at 1,200
Oh,
feet, and we're not allowed to jump through
yeah.
cloud cover in static
You
line.
do it under. Yep.
We exited the plane at like 700 feet. I
Yep.
timed it. I had like 28 seconds before I hit the water. Like,
Dangerous thing we do in the military by far. Some of the craziest shit I've ever seen happen, and that is fast roping. Do you guys do a lot of fast roping? You can do it onto boats and
um,
stuff, or how do you guys? Is that a big thing for you guys? We do a lot of it. That's why I'm curious if you do it.
and
I imagine you guys do too.
I got a good one. So we do in SQT and then in unit training, you're gonna do rappelling from a helicopter, right? Like old school insertion, and then you're gonna do fast roping.
Oh,
The one thing that I
okay.
liked about what we did in fast roping, so we have rope climbs, and you would climb up, and then
Yep.
like you practice your fast roping. I always thought there should be a fast rope obstacle on the obstacle course,
Mm.
but there wasn't. I would say this: we didn't practice a lot of long fast ropes. Like, so, even in unit
Oh,
training,
really?
like probably like a 30-foot fast rope would be as high as you go. But we just had, imagine you said that, the CO of SEAL Team 8 got killed on a 50-foot fast rope onto a
Yep.
building. Now, he didn't die of his causes. The load master cut him away early. But my point is, like you're saying, like the more height, we did a ton of fast ropes. Like when we fast roped on the ships, it was a 10-foot fast rope. Like I
Right.
could one
Okay.
hand it sometimes, right?
You can
Jump
fall. You can
out.
fall off that, and you'll be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But like on ships, like you're saying with fast rope and like the decks were moving. But go ahead, you tell your story, and then I'm gonna tell my story about repelling because it was a pretty interesting story.
So I've got a few just because we did so much fast roping, and we do them operationally full kit. Like fast roping is one thing, fast roping in full battle rattle, weapon, like rucksacks, chest rigs, helmets, nods at night. It gets super super sketchy. We do it from up to 60 feet, right? A 60-foot fast rope, guys, I can promise you, is you are on that rope a long time, and there's a lot of people on that rope because we go down one after another. And unfortunately, if something happens below you, you have to stop yourself, right? Let's say, because we do a lot of fast roping onto buildings. If you've got a six-story building that we're going to fast rope onto, and that helicopter is jostling around, the rope's moving, and that rope's going off of the building back onto the building, right? The bottom person might have to lock in and wait, and so does everybody. And if that person above you is not strong enough to lock in, and their feet come down on your hands, you're going off that rope. And so, a couple different stories on that. Um, One, we were working with the two commando guys in Australia doing a bunch of fast roping. They're super good at it. This is like their biggest thing is fast roping. And we're doing it at night, and we're gonna fast rope on top of this building. And I swear, the top of this building must have been maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, like like small with big railing, like a 3-foot railing around the outside. And I was a fries master, so I would be the guy that would send everybody out, and I would go out last. And I start sending my dudes out, and we're good. And then my warrant officer, the other Nate on my team, he is probably about 150, 160 pounds soaking wet, right? And in fast roping, the lighter you are, the more that rope can do crazy shit if someone's not holding it down on the ground. I send him out the plane, and as you go out the plane, or you're sitting on a helicopter, and you got your we were doing out of Blackhawks. you're sitting there, and so you kind of turn away from the plane and 180. That way, your rucksack doesn't catch on the helo. And as he turns and goes down, I watch him. He just disappears immediately under the aircraft because of the rotor wash. So he disappears. The rope goes flying that way. And I'm like, oh God, he's gone. And as I'm sliding down, and I'm able to look down below, and he's got his feet on the railing of this 4-story building, right? And he's doing this, like holding onto the rope as his feet are on that railing, trying not to fall off the side of this 4-story building while the rotor wash is blowing him off the building, back onto the building, off the building, back onto the building. We're finally able to get one of the guys below that to get the rope into the center so he can get on. But like, had he flown off that thing, he'd have fallen, 4 stories, probably broken every bone in his body. That's one. Now I'm talking about falling out of aircraft, because I've literally watched multiple guys miss the rope, right? And I watched an Aussie 2 Commando guy, and they're wild, the stuff they do. They fast rope with dogs and all kinds of stuff. Like, they'll do 6 people at once. Really cool stuff. Really, really cool to watch them work. But we're like going back and forth. They go, we go, they go, we go. And we're out in this big field. We're just doing elevators. And elevators, guys, is where...
Hang on,
yep,
Nate.
you're good.
Okay, explain that to everybody. You're saying they go, we go, meaning their stick goes and then your stick goes. You're not alternating people, correct?
Okay. No, so we would have like 6 of them go. They come up, fast rope out, they jump off. 6 of us, the Americans, jump on. We eventually integrated, but 6 Aussies go, they get off, 6 Americans get on, and we're just rotating back and forth doing reps. We're doing what's called elevators. Elevators essentially is you get on the aircraft, the helo, it raises straight up to altitude, you fast rope out, it comes back down. Excuse me. And that's how you that's how you get a bunch of repetitions in. So I'm sitting here watching. I'm getting my guys rigged up, and they go up, and I think they're probably doing 20-foot fast ropes at this point. And all 6 ropes come out the sides, right, together. It's looking badass. And the 3 on our side, you see all 3 of them turn to go, and the guy in the center goes out to grab and turn and completely misses the rope and just falls sideways out of the helicopter, off the helicopter, all the way. Luckily, we're in grass, bounces off the ground. Thank God he was okay. I mean, he had the wind knocked out of him, and he ended up not breaking any bones because it wasn't that high, but that's really normal. Like, if you don't get a good grip, especially when you're in full kit, you got 100 pounds of gear on you, you don't lock your legs in correctly, you just fly right off that thing. And the other thing, guys, when we talk about doing 60-footers, I don't know if you ever did any 60-footers, Jake, just to try them out.
I don't. Guys, the longest I remember is maybe like a 30-footer. Like, we didn't go up super high. Let me ask you this: did you have welding gloves on? Were you using welding gloves?
That's exactly what I was just going to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you're at 60 feet, guys, and you're going 60 feet down a rope, we have what's called fast rope gloves. They're essentially welding gloves. Even with those on, right, and if you don't have the rope correctly between your legs, and you have to have your feet on it, guys. You can't wrap your legs around it like you're in high school in a gym, because you'll literally, by the time you get to the bottom of that, the rope burn of that, your hands are like 200 degrees on the outside of those welding gloves when you get to the bottom. And so you also have to have your boots touching the rope rather than your legs. Otherwise, you'll literally, guys will, and it's hard to do, right? Because then you're not really using, like, you're not wrapping your legs around the rope, and you have to go 60 feet in full kit, just your hands and your feet holding on to that. And yeah, your hands will get absolutely destroyed, burned to pieces if you don't do it correctly. And I've seen guys like go out and miss the rope incorrectly with their feet, and then they have to wrap their legs on it and then come down. And yeah, you're not going to have any hair on your legs and that part of your body for the rest of your life. So yeah, fast roping, I think, is of all the stuff we do on a regular basis, has got to be. Now, you can die from diving, you can die from halo, you can die from fast roping, you can die from ranger school, everything. But as for like per capita, I think fast roping from injuries and death has got to be one of the highest and most dangerous. And it's not easy. It's hard as shit to do. At the end of a day of fast roping, you're like, fuck
How
this.
how far? So I've never fast roped out of a 60. Okay. But I fast rope out of a 46. And a 46, I'm
Yep.
short. My arms are 34 inches. The rope was 3 inches past my fingertips leaning out of the plane, out of the helicopter, right? And I want people to understand, like, a helicopter is not a stable platform. It doesn't just, it's not like standing on the ground and like, okay, I got to reach an extra 3 inches. Everything is moving. The helicopter's oscillating and the rope is moving a little bit. And you're like, oh man, how far away is it for you, Nate? Like out of a 60, like, can you touch it and still have contact with the plane?
Out of the 60s, yes, because the 60s you're sitting down and the rope's literally right between your legs. So 60s,
Okay.
60s the easiest, right? Because again, you're sitting down, you're literally just holding on. You already are holding onto the rope, and then you just
And
are
then
sliding
you're
off
rotating out.
180
Okay.
turn. Now, out of the CH-47s, there's a couple different ways. You can go out of the side door, which is, it's okay. And then also they'll hook it up into the center of the aircraft and
Yeah.
open a door in the bottom. That's a little bit sketchier. The worst by far is out of an Osprey. Out of an Osprey is the most That's the most dangerous thing I think I ever did in the military was fast rope out of an Osprey, because like you mentioned, in the Osprey they hook that rope up at the back of the aircraft right over the ramp, and even for me, I have to stand on the ramp and reach all the way out like this over, like falling to your death, and then grab that rope. And then when I go to fast rope, that rope, because of the rotor wash isn't straight up and down on that Osprey, it's doing this. So that rope's going diagonal. And so you essentially have to reach out, grab it, jump out, and kick your legs up over the rope to come down diagonally. And if you miss your feet on that rope, you're Tarzaning down that motherfucker. And it is, and not only that, for me as a bigger guy that weighed a lot, it was okay because I could weigh that rope down. But we had our junior Charlie, I think, was about 165, 170 pounds at the time. He went out, got on it, and that rope was like this, and he couldn't even get down the rope. He was literally just stuck horizontally up on that rope until we had 3 guys like pulling the rope, try to get it vertical. So stuff like that. That platform is not made for fast roping, but we do it anyway.
Yep. And this is the stuff I want everybody to understand, right? Like, we are out there at the very edge of sanity. Like, everything we do is level 5 training. Death is imminent. Can you moderate the death risk, right? You're doing a risk assessment. You're doing everything. Okay, we're fast roping out of Osprey. 4 dudes have died in the last 2 years fast roping out of Ospreys. Okay, what do we have to do? Okay, well, let's maybe just take the distance down to 10 feet, right? That's always the exchange. The pilots don't like to be below 30 feet because of ground effect, right? Like 30, 40 feet. They're always like, I can't keep it stable that low. Like, I got ground effect, right? And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So now, like, 40 feet will kill you. 30 feet will kill you. 20 feet will kill you, okay?
Yep.
So we were doing 60-foot rappels. Obviously, rappelling is a lot safer, okay? You've got a rope, you got your hand. In our case, we had a belay. But the other thing is your fall rate is controlled because the rope's going through the figure 8. It doesn't, like, even if you just let go of everything, you're only going to fall so fast. There's no, gravity is taking effect, but you're not accelerating on the way down the rope. And so we were out there doing 60-foot fast ropes and SQT, boom, kicking them out, right? I would just fall all the way to the bottom, snap it off like 4 feet below the ground. The rope would stretch a little bit, whatever, and you just let go and you touch the ground, stand up, unhook your carabiner, take your figure 8 off, be done, right? So we're out there, and I wasn't on belay. I was just like, we're just doing training, like you were saying, elevators, the helicopter going up, you jumping. Here, hey, shout out to Chris Heben, bruh. His name is Chris McKinley now, but I'm going to send him a shout out. So Chris was a little bit over the top most of the time, okay? Big, yoked up dude. Jumps out the helicopter and almost went Superman on it, right? Like, I was like, what is he doing? And the rope spun him around backwards, and I realized he didn't have his hands on nothing.
Oh, God.
And I said, oh, man, but we're under a helicopter. You're not under it, but you can't yell at anybody. Like, I'm like, oh, man, we need belay. We need belay. Belay is the safety dude to pull on the rope to stop you from falling. Right. The safety dude started running about 5 feet off the ground, and he bounced on his back about 6 feet up into the air. And I was like, ooh, that's not good. And so then, obviously, we had to go over there and do a safety check. He had a solid concussion, but nothing else wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, I said, Chris, what are you doing, bro? He's like, I missed the rope. I'm like, missed the rope? It's a fucking rappel. It's right here between your legs on a figure 8, man. Like, bro, you're going to kill yourself, you know? And there's some of that too, Nate. You got guys showboating, like free fall. The other one that I want to talk about, we were on parachute and we got to rappelling and fast rope and sketchiness. So my sketchy stories, static line, and I got one really good one. I'm gonna send Neil Shaw a shout out, and I got one really bad one. So when we first started jumping, you know, you're at the SEALs, they tell you get your jumps in. The more jumps you do, the easier it'll get. Okay, that's a lie. I got like 69 static line jumps. Every one of them sucked. Okay.
Yeah.
But we would go out to this airfield, an old airfield called Fentress. And the drop zone was really narrow, like maybe 100 yards wide, huge oak trees on the back side of the drop zone, a big ass oak tree in the middle of the drop zone, not in the middle of the runway, but like right off the runway. Like, and so the first time I went out there, I'm like, oh, this is different. They're like, yeah, it's really tight. Like, make sure you don't land in the trees. So I'm like, all right, cool. So the first time I jump, dude lands in the trees. You're like, okay, that was bad. Don't land in the trees. So after about a year, you get used to jumping out there. And the first thing you know is like, okay, I'm not going in the trees. So we were in, it wasn't a platoon jump. It was just a regular, like, they put the call out to all the commands. Hey, they're jumping, whatever, show up.
We have those too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I show up and go to the brief. We're jumping Fentress. Okay, I don't like jumping Fentress, but whatever. So I remember, you know how they do this? We all the same, right? They give you the wins.
Yeah.
They're like 1 whatever 0, you know.
One gusting 5 or whatever.
Yeah, gusting 5. Like, so this is like, let's just call it 12 knots, right? And they give you the direction. And I'm like, I had seen the windsock. So we stuff a windsock. The winds were blowing towards the trees, okay? We're in rounds. There ain't no mobility. So I'm looking, and he's like, stand up, you know, hook up. So we're hooking up, and I'm like, we're over the trees. So I'm like maybe like 4th in the line, 3rd in the line. And I'm like, you know, like at this point, like I was been in the SEAL teams enough to know, like I'm not doing dumb shit. Like I'm not, like this ain't a real mission. This is like categorized as dumb shit. Okay, so I'm gonna be smart about it. So I'm watching, and he's like, go. And I'm like, we were a solid 50 yards over the trees with the wind blowing over the trees. And I was like, nope. And so the 3 dudes in front of me went. So then everybody's screaming at me on the bird, like, yo, mother. I'm like, man, fuck you guys, right? Like at this point, like I've been in a couple fights. I had been to Fight Club. Like I wasn't scared of the like, you're making us look bad. I was like, no, fuck all y'all. So I sat back down. We were on a helicopter. They fucking landed. All 3 of them dudes was in the fucking trees. Okay.
Yeah.
My boy Chad Burkhart was in the trees for like 6 hours. Cause he was like in just a real funny place and they couldn't get to him and they ended up like, it was bad, man. And so he ended up being in a wheelchair for 2 weeks because his legs had lost, like the nerves in his legs, they got deadened, hanging in a harness for 6 hours, right? And so like there was times like that where you'd just be like, yo, what are we doing? Now, the good one, Nate, I bet my boy Neil Shaw, shout out to Neil Shaw, Master Chief. You know, I know you don't like me, but I'm still going to give you a shout out, okay? He just got back from Jump Master School, okay? So I'm like, we're in unit training with my platoon, and I'm like, Neil, I'll bet you a fucking pack case of beer that you can't put me on this bread truck. So I don't know if you guys use bread trucks like we do, but like the bread truck is synonymous with fucking everything, right? Like,
and everybody, I swear, dude, that thing is a target for jumpers, man. I've seen so many dudes hit that thing.
So we literally have a big ass runway out at Pickett. It's a full size military runway, and then there's this big like drop of blackberry bushes, and then there's another little space where they park the observers trucks, and they all kind of set up there, and then you walk and you get on the airplane. So I'm like, Neil, I got a case of beer if you could put me on this damn bread truck. He's like, I got you, Jake. I want my case of beer. I'm like, I'm all over it. So this is, like now I've been to SEAL teams 4 years. I'm like, oh yeah, you start, stuff starts getting deadened, right? You like, it's deadened a little bit. Yeah. I go out the helicopter, we were jumping out of the C-130. I jump out the C-130, coming down. I'm like, oh yeah, about to land on this bread truck. Oh yeah. And then I was probably about 800 feet, and I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Like, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to hit this bread truck. Like, like the common sense came in. I'm like, oh shit, that's a great point. So I turned and I ran with the wind, and I landed in the middle of all the cars, right? It was still really dangerous. Like, you don't realize this shit until you see somebody hit a car and break both their legs, and you're like, oh man. So I landed in a parking lot, and Neil was pissed at me. I said, bro, I'm buying your beer. That was a great drop. The problem was to put me on the bread truck, like 4 dudes ended up in the Blackberry Hollow, and they're all down there screaming. And so then everybody was mad at me, so I had to buy everybody beer. So,
dude, it's fun. It's so funny because now that you told me that story, I'm remembering a static line jump. Now, I didn't do static line. Once I got military free fall school straight out of the qualification course as being one of the top PT performers. Thank God. So I think I have 9 static line jumps in my career and hundreds of halo jumps, and it is what it is, man. Once you get those halo wings, it's like, because every time like the jump for qualification comes up, they're like, if you're halo qualified, we got a stick at the end of the static line passes so you can get on to do your jumps. But so I've already done my halo jumps and I'm chilling, and the rest of the guys who aren't, the rest of the ODAs, because it's like a company jump, right? So you've got like 5 of the ODAs got to do static line, and only the MFF guys can do the MFF pass. And so I think the MFF pass went first because they wanted to get us all the way up to altitude, throw us out, and then get it over with while they got everybody else ready. Or usually they do that backwards. I don't know, but for whatever reason,
static line. They make the static line pass because I never saw the free fall guys get out of the bird.
I don't. Yeah, that's typically how it is. I don't remember, something to do with Okinawa. We were you do it at Iashima Island, so something for whatever reason we had to go first, right? There was 2 or 3 halo sticks that went first, and then static line came because you're flying. They have to fly all the way from Kadena, so I think that might have been it. But anyway, so we're sitting on the ground, and it's not a bread truck, but we've got a giant like 15 packs van out there that we've borrowed from. I forget, like, not the motor pool, but like Okinawa Torii Station, like the military owns these, but our unit didn't own these vans, right? And so we've got this 15 packs van. It's sitting in the center of the drop zone. There's also a big thing of bleachers that are right next to it. And dude, this pass comes in, and like you said, all these dudes, it's like a great pass. They're all headed straight for the center, and like the van's kind of like right in the center, right? Because that's where like everybody's located. And people are coming in, and I think it was, I don't remember if it was, I think it was one of the Charlies from the mountain team. He's coming in, and these guys, these chutes are not, like they say it's a steerable parachute. It's not. You're kind of just like going wherever the wind takes you. He's coming in.
Yeah.
And we're watching, there's 2 or 3 of them all, and they're coming straight in, like perfect. They're going to hit target right, like you said, on this, like right by the 15 packs van. And as this dude comes in, he's like 100 feet, 50 feet, and everybody starts screaming. They're like, fucking turn your chute. And he turns it right, and he's just spinning in circles as he just keeps coming straight towards it because he's not actually changing directions. And he comes in and literally like feet up like this straight into the door of that 15 packs van. Like looked like a car hit this van, like cratered the side of it. He bounces off of it, falls over. The next guy behind him looks like he's going to hit the van, and he watches him. So he is able to turn his parachute enough. He flies by that and hits the bleachers and bounces off the bleachers over the top. And then we had a couple other cars out there. And then I watched another guy come in right behind that and hit the hood of a car with his feet and sort of like backflip off the back of it, all like back to back to back. they all ended up being okay. It actually caused a big problem because we destroyed the 15 packs van from the the army base that we were on, and they stopped letting us use them because they were so pissed off at us. But yeah, that static line stuff, dude.
So, so I think it's important that we cover this, Nate, because I want people to understand. If you hit something under canopy, I would say there's probably a 50% chance that you're going to get killed, or really
break
badly
shit,
imaged. Like there's so I have this. You know what? I'm gonna put it out. I'll put it out there. Yeah, you've had a bad jump. We'll talk about it. But I'm gonna put this out there. I'm gonna put my mishap video in this playlist so you can watch it, and you will be shocked at. There's a dude that runs into a tractor in the middle of an open field, free fall, and loses his whole leg. Okay, if you hit something when you are coming down in a parachute, there is a high likelihood that you're going to break bones. And I'm not even talking about, I tell this story. In the first jump at Benning, the dude behind me got his leg ripped off on a weak exit.
Oh, I got to tell you something right after this.
Yeah, he because at Benning they show you all the mishaps immediately afterwards, and he limped out the plane, fell over, and you see his foot go up. And you see the static line coming out, running through his foot. Riser caught his foot, snatched his leg up. He fell down. This is where his foot was, behind his body. His boot was in the risers above his head. And he screamed the whole way down, and I kept thinking to myself, I don't know what that dude's screaming about. I got to figure out where the wind is. Oh, God, this dude is screaming. And I landed with the wind, hard as all get out. My legs went on fire. I was on my back, and I looked at him, and I was like, something's wrong with this picture. Oh, that's why he's screaming. And all the ambulances were screaming towards him. And you're like, yeah, man, you fuck up parachuting, you're going to get hurt.
We had a dude catch the stat, or not, no, it was a girl, I think, in our class. Went out and static line routed under her armpit as she jumped out, and it almost ripped her arm all the way off. And yeah, that was ugly. Also, my dad, when he was in static line jump master way back, he said his very first jump, he went out, and it was same place, Benning, same exact airborne school we all go through. It hasn't changed since World War II. Literally hasn't changed. He jumps out, he tells the story, it's funnier, gets his parachute good to go, and somebody next to him, or behind him, flies by him. Parachute doesn't open. It has a cigarette. What's it called? Cigarette or whatever
roll.
it is.
Cigarette
roll. Flies past him, and his feet go into an open parachute of the jumper to in front of my dad. Collapses their parachutes together, entangles, and they both obviously scream to the ground. He said, I think one of them died. One of them lived with 50 broken bones in his body, and then they literally were like, okay, that sucks. This happens, guys. All right, get back on the plane. Time to jump again. And you're like, that's my first jump, and I just literally watched two dudes die right next to me, and they're like, yeah, that happens out here, man. And it's like, I wonder how many people have died at airborne school since World War II. I wonder what the numbers are. I bet it's a decent amount. That's the absolute safest environment for static line that there is, because those black hats are as well trained as it's going to get when it comes to being jump masters. I got quite a few super chats.
Go hit your super chat because I'm about to pee on myself, Nate.
Yep. All right, B Sandman, $10. Keep rocking, Jake and Nate. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that generosity. I know we had a couple from Old Sandy Cheeks. Nice name, bro. 1 sec, let me get these to where I can get scrolled up. Get back up to your message. No, that's not it. All right. Oh, I think you sent two of them, right? There we go. All right, first one from Old Sandy Cheeks. Hey, guys, enjoy your stuff. 2 chat questions. Currently Navy dude of 10 years, went to Buds, but didn't make it out of Hell Week. Tried back for years, but Manning and years group didn't jive. And then you said, now I'm doing the Blue to Green program. Blue to Green program? Oh, like Navy to Army. Gotcha. And should be leaving to SFAS in October, November. Is there any Army standards I should know going through the pipeline as an E6, or just keep my head down and do it? So kind of an interesting, we'll let Jake get back. Jake, kind of an interesting question from Old Sandy Cheeks, which you might be able to weigh on with me. Says, hey guys, I enjoy your stuff. 2 chat questions. Currently a Navy dude of 10 years. I went to Buds, but didn't make it out of Hell Week. Tried to go back for years, but manning groups didn't jive. And then he said he's currently doing the Blue to Green program, which I'm assuming is Navy to Army,
Yeah,
and
blue
should be
blue to
leaving
green.
for SFAS in October. Is there any Army standards I should know going through the pipeline as an E6, or just to keep my head down and do it? So my question would be, why'd you wash out of Buds, right? That's going to be an important one because Buds and SFAS are not the same. However, they're both, I mean, I would say equally as difficult, but in different ways. So if you failed Buds because of physical fitness standards, I'm going to say you're probably going to fail SFAS due to physical fitness standards as well, right? If it was a swimming based issue you had, hell, you might be great at SFAS because you're not going to get in the water. So I need a little bit more information. So as for standards, PT, you're an E6. I'll tell you this, and this is a big thing in the Q course. Your rank, while we don't wear rank and supposedly it doesn't matter, it absolutely matters to the cadre and the people who are grading you. Okay, so me as a E3 18 X-ray, when I went through, there was very low other expectations from the cadre other than does this guy have potential, right? He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he respects the people around him, he works well as a team. That's going to be good enough for an 18 X-ray E3. An E6 from the 82nd, from the Navy, from Ranger Battalion is going to have way higher expectations from the cadre with his leadership, the way he interacts with people, his knowledge, his military knowledge. So be advised when you said, should I just keep my head down and do it as an E6? No, brother. This is where we talk about gray man, right? If you, the lower enlisted, that's a fucking gray man, right? Work hard, carry a shit ton of weight, be a gray man, you're going to do well. If you're an E6, E7 trying to go through these courses and you try to be a gray man, there's a 0% chance you will make it because the cadre want to see you as an E6, a senior NCO. Well, you're not a senior NCO yet, but you're about to be. They want to see you being that leader that you're supposed to be as an NCO. And if you're just this quiet gray man in the background, brother, they're going to identify you immediately and there's no way you're going to make it. So just be prepared for that you will be expected to sort of not be the I'm in charge guy, but to be a leader through your actions. What do you think, Jake? Anything on that?
Nate, I think you absolutely nailed it. The one thing I would add to him, hey man, email me at jake.zweig.com and get the Army
Yeah.
PDF. And listen,
Yep.
I tell everybody, one of the biggest defining factors in SFAS is you got to be able to run a sub 35-minute 5 mile in zone 2. Okay. And
Yep.
everybody's kind of like, you got to be able to ruck. You got to be able to carry a lot of weight. Me and Nate have talked extensively about 200 pounds, like you plus 200 pounds. Okay. That's the facts. But if you ask me, the number one thing that you got to do, that I have a dude there now that struggled and got rolled, you had to be a leader as an E6. So I'm not going to compound what Nate said. 1,000% exactly what Nate said. If you try to hide as an E6, you will get non-selected. Period. Like, not even a question. If you don't shine in leadership and kick-assness, you're going to get non-selected because they're not going to allow an E6 to show up to a group and not be a dog because you're going to be responsible immediately because of your rank for real shit.
Yeah, you may say, you very high likelihood you show up as an E6 who's been an E6 for a while, close to promotable to E7. They're going to expect you to act as a senior on a team, most likely. If there's not already a senior 18 Echo, you're going to walk into that and be the senior 18 Echo, and they're not going to care that you just got out of the Q course. The expectations are going to be just as high as any other E6 or E7 that shows up to that team room, that you're ready to do the job. So that, I think you're in a good spot. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like you're not going to make it because you're an E6, because trust me, we put a ton of E6s into group because E6 is still pretty low rank once you're on a team, right? It's called the E7 Mafia for a reason. Everybody's either E6 or about to be an E7 on a team. So you're in a good spot, but again, like I would say, that makes me question when you say, should I just keep my head down? Like, no, I can't say that's good advice for you, bud. But all right, we're at an hour.
Nate, I got
Do we
a
got any
couple
other
super
stories?
chat. I got super
Okay,
chat,
yep.
and then I want to give the sketchy one. Okay, so
Okay.
Joey Moas, shout out for $19. The Batcave and Bruce Wayne is back, baby. Look, man, me and Nate are killing this shit. I don't know that the I guess the chemistry is going really well between the two of us, and you guys love these things on Sunday afternoons. We've been doing good. All right, Damian Brown, good afternoon. I've been heavily interested in SF recently. I'm a certified paramedic. Would it make sense easier to be selected for 18 Delta as a former Marine 29-year-old? So Nate said something earlier, man. Listen, the Marine Corps murders pretty much every other service they go into because it's going to be so much different. You're going to be able to excel massively. The Marines at my SEAL training class murdered it. The
Yep.
Marines at my SEAL team were some of the best. So
Yep.
yes, you want to go 18 Delta? Absolutely. They're going to know you got a paramedic certification and all of that
Well,
stuff. Go ahead.
all right. I don't want to interrupt because everybody gets upset, but this
Go
is
ahead.
important because this is a misconception. Okay, guys?
Yep.
Your paramedic background, your 68 whiskey background, your combat medic background, your corpsman background, they do not give a fuck about that when making you an 18 Delta. Okay? You could be a doctor. They do not care. And the reason for that is I know everybody thinks that. They're like, oh, I was a paramedic. That's going to make me more likely to get 18 Delta. It's not. And it's not that they don't necessarily want it. The entire point is they are going to teach you from the ground floor everything you need to know that's going to infinitely surpass what you could learn as a paramedic, as a corpsman, a 68 whiskey. And so I did see a lot of 68 whiskeys and prior paramedics get 18 Delta because they requested 18 Delta as their number one, but that's going to require high GT scores, high D lab scores, because they're going to want to see propensity that you're smarter than the other dipshits like me around you to give you the hardest academic MOS, because it is. 18 Delta is a very academic MOS. So while I agree with Jake on everything else you said, I just want guys to be careful thinking that, like, hey, if I'm a paramedic or I'm a 68 whiskey, I'm going to get 18 Delta, because that is not the case, guys. There's a lot of guys that get upset because they're like, I was a fucking EMT, I was a paramedic, how did I get 18 Charlie? And it's like, well, that's just the way this goes. But
And let me
again,
say this. I think this is really important for us to talk about, Nate. I appreciate you correcting me on that because that is a 100% absolutely true statement from Nate, okay? This is what I want everybody to understand. The difference between a paramedic gets a guy stabilized in the back of an ambulance in a situation and gets them to the hospital so the doctor can work on them. They're not doing chest tubes. They're not doing tracheotomies. They're not doing foreign object
oh,
like a stab wound or something like that. They're not dealing with that stuff. On the other end of the spectrum, an 18 Delta, okay? 18 Delta is a fucking surgeon out there
yep,
that is an enlisted dude that are some of the best dudes to get your shot up body or your missing leg to the hospital alive, to the MASH unit alive. And I think that's a big distinction because a lot of people think, oh, my paramedic certification is going to allow me to do better in the 18 Delta course. I'm going to tell you right now, having watched them dudes work, live tissue, you're learning surgery in the 18 Delta course. You're responsible for cracking that dude's chest and giving him a heart massage. You're responsible for inserting a chest tube into a collapsed lung. You're responsible for stopping the bleeding with an amputation below the knee. There's no let me stabilize him and get him to the hospital. Yeah, you're saving his life now. Like it's a completely different realm of capabilities.
I will say, Jake, because that's a good point. Does being a paramedic, a 68 whiskey, give you an advantage if you do become or if you do get into the 18 Delta course? Yes, because you have a lot of knowledge of that medical background already. You're not starting from the ground floor up. So yes, it does give you sort of a academic advantage in that you already know a lot of the beginner stuff that you're going to learn. But to Jake's point, I teach in my civilian business, TCCC, trauma medicine, and I teach paramedics, I teach EMTs, I teach police officers, sheriffs. me, and I was an 18 Echo. How do I do that? Because I was cross-trained by the 18 Deltas Jake's talking about for a decade, and my skill level gets up to be that high. But, I mean, like Jake said, our 18 Deltas, I mean, most of them, a lot of them become PAs immediately after their 18 Deltas, but also, guys, they have not only your trauma medicine, they do a ton of different medicine, veterinarian medicine. You got to take care of goats while you're in the 18 Delta
Yep.
course.
Yep.
They're also doing OBGYN. They're delivering babies. Okay.
Yep.
One of my buddies was delivering babies in Afghanistan during VSO, living in the villages when things would go wrong. So an 18 Delta is and they work in hospitals for a huge portion of their 18 Delta course. Like these guys they're not just paramedics or corpsmen I'm going to put a tourniquet on like Jake said. So yes, you will get a little bit of an advantage because you've got a good medical background, but you're going to go 1,000 times higher than what you were learning as an EMT or a paramedic. So real quick, old Sandy Cheeks wrote, thank you for the straight up answer and BS. Appreciate it. What's your email? I'm assuming that's for Jake's email. He was the one asking the questions about
Yeah.
SFAS.
Just Google my name, my email come up. Just jake.zwig@gmail. It's all over the place. Just put my email in. Look in the description of any of my videos. My email's in there. Like, just shoot me an email. My bot will send it right back to you. So it's easy. I mean, shit, Nate, that was a good video. I don't think we need to talk about no more stuff. I know I want to talk about my rollover accident, but I think that was
if we were to get into the next one, this thing would go probably longer than 2 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's tell your last story, and then we'll jet out of here.
Oh no, I'm gonna keep my last story. I'm gonna keep it. Like we're
Okay.
good. We're at 2308. Let's send a shout out to TastetheGainz gummies. Let me tell y'all something. You want to know why I be on this channel on 1 million? Look, me and Nate, we cheating the code. This is pre-workout. We use it as pre-podcast, okay? We be on fire. Yep. Shout out to everybody, man. Hey, listen, we got the War Room on Friday nights. We're rolling over there. I've got my Discord on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. I'm doing the Leadership Lab for School's Classroom. Nate, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I got my live on Fridays after the War Room. Other than that, we see you guys each week. We appreciate y'all coming out, showing up every week. It's been a successful podcast so far, and we're going to keep doing it as long as y'all keep showing up. So thank you, everybody. That's going to do it for this one. We did a good hour and 10 minutes, and we'll catch y'all in the next one.
Deuces.
All right.